Pause. If you can hear me, pretentious. If you guys can hear me, say yes, so I can see if it's my audio or his. Can you guys hear me at all? No? Yeah? Maybe? Oh, okay. Weird. I couldn't hear him for shit. Chris, go ahead and request again. That was weird. You just came on. There was no sound whatsoever. Request.
Boy. How about now, man? You got me?
Now I can hear you.
Hey, what up?
What up, dude?
I'm chilling, man. I was going to sit in my I Love Me room with all my cool stuff behind me. My family's out there decorating the Christmas tree, and it's very loud.
My son is watching a Christmas movie, so I'm doing the same.
Yep, hiding in the room.
Yeah, I'm hiding in the office that needs more organization. But dude, so thanks for appreciate it. These things started being they were fun. I started a year and a half ago because COVID was boring and nobody was able to go anywhere, and I was like, I'll start. If I can't see anybody, then I'll start talking to people on Instagram, and people have been enjoying it. So trying to get, with anybody and everybody who has a subject to talk about, and kind of just put it out there and let people ask questions and bullshit, and it's been fun. So I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, dude, I've watched a few of them. Man, I'm just new to the internet, and a lot of the questions that get asked are, when you at first glance, I'm like, that's fucking stupid. But legitimately, people just want an answer, and they don't know where to go, and they just ask them. But there are other people who have just dumb ideas. I like what you've been putting out, though.
It's been hard, man, because I was in the industry for a long time. Well, hey, actually, before we get too much into it, if you guys are coming from his page, welcome. If you guys are coming from my page, follow him, and we'll give our 30-second elevator intros. So I'm Joe. I'm half of the Bruiser Industries dynamically tactical duo. I am the soft side of things, with JR being the SWAT side of things. I did 14 years in the SEAL teams, and did less than some, more than others, and I like to party. So there's my 30 seconds. And if you, Chris, have at it.
Hey, I'm Chris. Hopefully a bunch more people come on. We got some good questions. I already recognize some names. I'm still a cop, still active. It's 23 years now. I'm in what's called drop in our agency. So I have deferred my retirement, and I am working full-time, making my normal hourly wage, plus my pension is going into another account, which is a good thing. I did 13 and a half years on a pretty active SWAT team. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we can talk about, because the two worlds share 90% of the DNA. The problem is that the 10% that does not apply, we try to apply it because it looks cool in the LE world, and it's not the same to the military. The military is not trying to apply what the LE side does, although they are starting to learn lessons like surrounded call-outs. Hey, maybe we don't want to rush through the door and run to our death. So there's a lot that goes on between the two. Unfortunately, I think the bleeding out part comes from military to LE, and it's that, oh wow, this is cool factor, when it really doesn't apply to your normal job.
That's a weird dynamic play. And so back to transitioning into the industry. My transition into the industry was, okay, I came in and started writing for recoil and been clear and modern service weapons and stuff probably 15 years ago. And at the time, the industry was not flooded with guys with fancy high-speed bios, because we were still early in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so it was interesting because I got to make a lot of relationships with people who weren't inundated with, hey, I'm me, worship me because the ground I walk on, or am the ground I walk on. And it was cool to get early and then watch the transition to where we are now. And as the wars died down and everybody got butthurt because they weren't kicking indoors anymore, everybody got out expecting that, you know, everybody could get out and be an instructor. Somehow that's not how it works in the military, but it's how it seems to work in the civilian world. And so now the industry is flooded with guys with bios like similar to mine. Insert, you know, high speed title here. And so it's interesting because we do on the social media side of things, you have to walk that fine line. And I'm my own worst enemy in a lot of ways. I hate selling myself. I loathe it. I hate
can tell.
typing my bio. I hate like it. And so I'm one of those people that swings 180 the other way. And so I do little to none of it. And when I do, it feels cheap and cheesy. But the model's been set by people who were on the 180 out from where I kind of feel like I tend to sit sometimes. And that's what you mentioned, people who don't know, like it's the people who don't know what they don't know who ask the questions. And like you said, it's not that they're somebody's going to get offended by this. It's not that they're dumb or anything else. So they just don't fucking know. And if you've been doing this job for a long time, either job, any job, you know, wearing plates and facing somebody that isn't a paper target, you forget what it felt like to know nothing.
Right. And you forget, I had to learn, like, so I started doing the SWAT thing in 2006, right? 2011 hit, and I've had people ask me, why didn't you get back in the military? Why didn't you do that? I was in the Marines and the Army before that. And I was like, I was older. I didn't feel like going back, and I had a job. Why would I go back? Right? I'm doing plenty of work here. 2006, I started the SWAT thing with, like, no shit, drop legs on both sides. Like, the left side had AR mags. The right side had a bang and a pistol, and like a pistol mag up here, and these gigantic Velcro covered snap button vests. And our doctrine and our dress and our manner of kit, right, worked for us, quote, worked for us. And I don't think our unit had any outside training since probably 1999, when they had the guys from what's that freaking security forces unit Marine Corps had up in, like, force protection units. There was like a CQB class that they put on for them. It's like one of the first CQB classes I went through in 95, where it was like run to the corner and you had to tell them the number in the bucket on the floor, like old school stuff, right? So we ran CQB and we did all those things that way. And I thought that was normal and I thought I was good until I started experiencing outside stuff and other people, and then realizing, you're like, oh, I suck at shooting. Like, we as a group suck at shooting, and I'm better than most of them, and I suck when I go out and I compare myself to other people. And that's where I ended up going with a group of much younger dudes. We had a group of very young dudes come on 2010, 11-ish, and I started attaching myself to them because they just wanted to kick ass. They wanted to be absolutely the best. So they were hitting up, like, Kyle Lamb when he first started training. Remember that? So when Kyle Lamb first came out, they had like a vehicles fighting class and then just a carbine class from him. And we were all like, holy shit, we're not good at what we're doing right now. And we're just lucky because no one's shooting at us. And when they do, it's on a jump or something else that's pretty simple, and you just shoot back to kill them. But then we started getting shot at through the walls and through the doors and a lot, like on entries into houses where you cannot shoot back. And the worlds are two different places with the military and the police departments like that. You cannot, even if you're being shot at from inside a room, you can't enter the room shooting. Because that guy might be in, there might be some drug dealer with his 12-year-old kid in there. Like, you must know for a fact you're shooting the right people. And once we started getting lit up a lot and dudes started getting shot a lot, we were like, we got to figure this out. It has to be different. And we started changing the way we developed stuff. And I think it was pretty much a parallel with some of our friends in some of these higher units in the military side, that just landing on the X and running through the front door doesn't work when everybody wants to shoot back. That was a weird tangent to get off on.
No, and what's crazy is the transition into, you know, I got in right after 9/11, and so the guy, I basically missed like one deployment to the Middle East, and then I jumped in on the next cycle. By the time I had like went through the whole pipeline and got into a platoon, it was like we were on this second pump. And so the back were like, dude, it was that I was five first deployment or 1.5 deployments, whatever, to Iraq, and it was go, and it was funny it's not funny, it's crazy to watch the old guys who prior to 9/11 had been tactical dudes for, our chiefs or senior chiefs or master chiefs had been, door kickers for 15, 17 years, but it's like everything was unopposed. Everything, right. Everything was training. Like, so all of the things that were doctrine for every unit in the military changed really fucking quick, because you were feeding through a fire hose of like legit door to door, like get off the Stryker, the Bradley, the Humvee, the whatever, and go. And so the shift from the dynamic door kicking 80s, 90s, every CQB movie you've ever seen, to more of a slow, controlled clearance, and like you said, surround and call out, and why rush to your death kind of thing. We got to watch all of that real time. Sorry, I'm reading it all too.
Yeah. So like what Bro Comey's talking about, right? I think that depends on who you're training with. And no offense, Joe, and I think you're probably on the same page as I am with this. People say, well, I trained with a guy who was in SEALs, or I trained with a guy who was in MARSOC, or a Delta dude. It's like, okay, cool. But even the highest pinnacle of our nation's tier 1, tier 0.5 freaking hostage rescue elements, they're doing things very specifically because it works for them in the environment they're doing it. And when you really get in depth with these guys and talk to them, you realize that they may do one thing as landing on helicopters with a giant group full of enablers with air support and everything else. They're going to do it one way, but they may also do things like that you never hear about in a hotel room in France. And it might be 3 guys going to get somebody else out of a room right next door. So it's more the police side of the house. The SEALs and stuff, like every single year, we have a group of guys that are from like the Virginia Beach area that come out and do like a RUT, right? A realistic urban training in the Phoenix area. They do it all over the country. And you'll talk to a handful of those guys going, dude, and they realize it, where they're like, we're training, we're building up, we're deploying, we're going on downtime, we're relaxing, we're training, we're building up, we're going on deployment. And they have that cycle of training that they go through, where all the lessons learned from prior or during their downtime and training, right, is passed on to them. Like, hey, this is the new way we're changing it, because what we did in Afghanistan doesn't work in Iraq, doesn't work in Africa, doesn't work in freaking South America. This is what in these AOs, this is how you need to change things. So a lot of those guys realize it. And I think they also realize that as a police officer, they're looking at it going, so you're doing this job 365 days a year for 20 years with no training, no downtime, and no way to refit. And even the SWAT teams get kind of bogged down into that same mentality, where you can't invest the time that's required to get everybody back up, even though the skill set, the amount of skill sets that are needed don't compare to a soft unit. But I think, would you agree that like the soft unit, like diving, jumping, comms, all medical, all these things have to get checked off on, but knowing what your next deployment is, or at least having an idea, they know which ones aren't going to be a priority. Like, we're not worried about diving if we're going to Afghanistan, right?
Hell, our cycle wasn't the same as Dam Neck. Their deployments are shorter, but they deploy twice as frequently, but for shorter periods of time typically, and much more rapid pace, but with a faster buildup, because you get guys who are already 1 or 2 deployments into their career before they go over to the other house. And so on our cycle, a lot of it is that you can't. When I came in, it was a little different. New guys could roll into a platoon like that's rolling out the door. Like, guess what? You're learning as you're there. They tended to then change it so that guys, as they graduated from the pipeline, would rotate into a platoon that was coming back. And so you then got to start with those guys from the beginning. They got to go through an entire schoolhouse cycle, an entire pre-deployment cycle, and so you have we have 6-month blocks essentially. So like 6 months of schools, 6 months of unit level, like platoon level training. And basically what guys don't realize is, and I've said this a couple times, is like, people go, well, you were a SEAL for 14 years or 15 years, 20 years, whatever. you must be badass because that your skill sets escalate. It's like, well, no, what you don't realize is that every pre-deployment workup, there's some after actions and changes and some experience gained from deployments, but that cycle doesn't get harder. Like that cycle is two guys who just showed up on enough of a level to then go through a door with you overseas. And so when you get back, some guys are leaving for leadership positions to teach someplace. You're getting a whole nother set of guys who just had a pin put on their chest who are day one. And you have to get those guys now to the same level again. And so you just go through the same wash, rinse, and repeat over and over again to deploy. And so, and like you said, there's an entire set of skill sets that we have to cover that law enforcement doesn't.
Right.
Or you like you guys have divers, but it's like 4 and
there's like 4 of them. Yeah.
For like the entire department.
Right.
Like,
and they swim in canals and dirty ponds and nobody's shooting guns at them ever. And
so we have like, 3 weeks of jumping, 3 or 4 weeks of diving. You have 3 or 4 weeks of boat operations, 3 or 4 weeks of climbing on go plats and doing oil platforms. Then you have land warfare, CQBs, special reconnaissance. Like, so you could remove 87.9% of our job, and then you might get to the stuff that loosely translates to what law enforcement does. And then law enforcement has another 90% of their job that we never fucking touch.
Right. They're taking burger. Like when I try to break most things down to the patrol officer, right? Everybody likes to like. So got me.
Yeah. I think, dude, are you getting blown up?
Gretchen is ringing this and she needs to stop. Yeah. What was I going to say?
Patrol officer.
Oh, so, but it's like a fake leadership thing that people like to say. The patrol's it's the backbone of the department. It's this and that. And it is. They don't treat it that way. All right. That's where they send them. And I got to go on this tangent real quick. That is not where they should send them. I think you need your absolute best out there. Yes, your new people need to go out there to learn. That's where you need your best. If you can't handle if you're a shitty domestic violence detective, the last thing I need to do is put you on the street where you actually interact with the public. But the patrol officer, that is where the biggest disconnect comes from, because guys want to go out and train, right? They want to get these things done, and it's important for them. But when it comes to shooting, medical, and all these other things that are going to help them in their actual decision-making models, when it comes to dealing with violence, it's important. But all the other stuff and the stories, unless they actually pertain to what this kid does or this man does in his day-to-day life, or this woman, the skydiving and all that stuff they're not doing. But their whole opposite side of the coin is they got to take an accident. So they got to go from taking an accident, measuring stuff out, to going to a domestic violence where the guy's beating the shit out of the wife in the bedroom, and they go in and deal with that, and then they pull a kid out of the pool. Like, it is this myriad of things that they actually get involved in, where the violence part of it is either non-existent or it's a very limited level of interpersonal violence, where it's a foot pursuit, a quick fight, and the guy is taken into custody with most things, right? And then we just had an officer get shot the other night, kind of basically walking up and saying, hey, what are you doing? And the guy does one hand like, no, nothing, on the phone, ends up shooting him in the face, emptying a magazine into him. And he's in the hospital now, life support, basically. And that's just walking up and going, hey, what's going on? And it happens across the country. It happens to people across the country too, right? Guy comes up to you at the gas pumps and goes, hey man, can I have $1? Oh no, boom, the gun's out and you're shot. When things like that occur, sorry, this is a weird tangent, but when things like that occur, my hope is that people don't think of a way to train out of it. There isn't an answer to an ambush. That's why they're successful, right? Like, you guys trained ambushes. Ambushes are successful because there's no answer. We're going to kill you when you walk into this spot, and you're just going to get shot up. And the people who survive those things, it's just out of accidental mishaps and luck. The ones that you can survive, where the training needs to come into, is where I think the level ground is, right? Like, everybody wants to learn CQB.
Yeah.
Being good at CQB isn't, we had answered one of your question posts earlier about that, right? About like, what is your basic clearance? Everybody's like 1 meter off the muzzle. Motherfucker, in the dark, if all you're looking for is my muzzle so you can stop at a meter, that means you're not doing your job of looking in the room, right? There's so much depth to every question that gets asked when it comes to these things that it's starting to frustrate me Because a lot of people will listen and like, hey, it really depends on what are you trying to do and what is the real thing that you're seeing versus, well, how should I do this? And we say, well, it depends. What's this mission? I just want to know what I'm supposed to do. Dude, it's not that simple. It's just not that simple where you can tell someone, dude, the answers are A, B, F. You do A, B, F on your checklist. They've got to understand that you have options, and the more that you have trained your head, the more that you can actually fall back to and react on. I don't know. This is like a weird tangent, and I know we got into it about deployment schedules and training, but I think what the problem is people think, well, if the more training I get, the better off I'm going to be in this, and they have an actual fantasy in their head. In this situation, I'll actually have an answer for it. Probably not. The more training you get, the more experiences you have, the more likely you are to have something to fall back on that will give you a chance of success, right? Like if you and I have been involved in similar situations and they share 90%, like I think like Rob Latham talks about it, a bunch of people talk about it, Steve Anderson talks about it. If 90% of the best people in the world do something a specific way, there's a 90% chance it's probably going to work for you in that situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I that's a great in the similarities and differences of SOF and SWAT, or SOF and law enforcement in general.
Right.
Especially the last 10 years, I'm going to say this, especially the last 10 years, the most, or even, I mean, even now to a point, the most marketable background on social media is the guys from SOCOM. It really is. Because everybody either says but doesn't say, like there's always, the big fiascos, the guys who kind of hinted that they were, a Green Beret or whatever, but weren't, like, and then everybody blows up because it's stolen valor and all this stuff. Like that exists for a reason, because everybody thinks that a bio from X unit is the epitome and the tip of all things shooting and guns and whatever. And talking about mindset of like, I come from a law enforcement family. I never served, never did a reserve thing, never did anything. But my grandfather was a sheriff for 30 years. My dad was a CO for 25 years. Like, I diverged off to a different path. But I tell people for law enforcement, and I have, obviously hundreds of buddies now who are cops, that I empathize simply because you guys have to be cordial while dealing with everybody on the worst day of their week, life, month, year, whatever. And we deploy, and most things we are allowed to sit at a higher RPM in preparation for a fight than you guys are. And so they go mindset. We're allowed to be like, even if we're doing PSD, even if we're doing like, we are there and allowed to be at a higher state of awareness and kind of hostility level. I'll say that. Like, I'm allowed to be at a low boil, whereas if you guys are at a low boil all the time, when you're dealing with the chick who just had the shit beat out of her, or the kid that you pulled out of a pool, or the kids you're giving a ticket for graffitiing the side of a 7-Eleven, like there's a different level at which you need to maintain while still but you guys can go from 0 to 110 like that, whereas we're kind of always at 70, like, and so we're already sitting at 8,000. I need to go, if I need to work right now, I'm already kind of there. Whereas I think a lot of cops get used to sitting at an idle.
Cops get used to sitting below idle. So, and that you're exactly right. So you guys can be, and what it is, in my opinion, is the use of force, right, is acceptable in your arena because we're at war, right? We're at war, we're in a war zone. The use of force in my arena when I became a cop in 1999 was acceptable when it was used appropriately, right? So what I think is happening now is people are afraid to use force, even though they're using the same force. So if I go to the Fourth Amendment is a thing, right? Like the right to be, against seizure unless, I have a warrant or do everything else, right? If I put my hands on you, I have seized you. I have now used force. It's physical force. If I put my hand on you to control your arm. Greg, a buddy of mine from my team a long time ago asked me this question. He goes, if I'm justified in punching you in your mouth, how hard do I hit you? As hard as you can. If I'm justified in grabbing your wrist, how hard do I grab you? as hard as you can. With as much force as I can generate in a circle around your wrist, I grab you that hard. If I'm going to grab you, I'm going to put my hands on you because I can always ease up, right? But if you come up gentle with someone, I want to grab your arm like a soft baby girl, and you pull your arm away, there's nothing I can do about that to stop it. But I can feel that if I grab you hard enough to begin with and you want to pull, you're not going anywhere. Now we can fight from there, or I can release you, or you go, hey, 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 look. And if I can feel you relax, and if you put your hands on a man enough or a woman enough, like if you put your hands on another human being in enough situations to know what their body is telling you, to know what that force feels like when they move, you become accustomed to it, and it's very easy to relax. But what I see happening a lot now is we come up and officers specifically, I don't think you're going to find too many Marines in Afghanistan who put their hands on people gently or push them back gently. It's force, like move. But that is a problem in law enforcement now where, well, I didn't want to be too rough with them. You already put your hands on them, dude. You've already pushed into the Fourth Amendment with them, and you either have a right to do it or you don't. You might as well go at 100%. There's no 40% grabbing. It needs to be understanding that I'm about to use force in this man, grab his wrist, hey, don't move. And when you have compliance, you can always release it a little bit, right? We're not there to hurt people. But if you bend, it's like the exact opposite. If I shove someone's arm up behind their back and you're hurting them, what are they going to do? Their brain, their reptilian brain is going to try to stop you from hurting them. So don't hurt people you don't need to, right? Paying compliance is a thing, but cops, that's the problem, is they become numb to interaction with society, right? When they're brand new, they're nervous. You can watch new guys' hands shake. New cops. They're grown men, they're 24 years old, whatever. But you watch a brand new cop on the street interacting with people, and you can see him shaking. And that's why every person out there knows they're new. Like, what are you, the new guy? Because they know. They can actually see them. You know what I mean? They can see just the way they're dressed, the way they look, the way their eyes look. They don't have that demeanor about them. And they will test those people. Those people, unfortunately, those newer officers are afraid, well, if I put my hands on somebody, I don't want to hurt them, or I don't want to be blamed for excessive force. Dude, grabbing a wrist is grabbing a wrist, right? Would you agree with that? Like, if I'm going to grab your wrist, grab it. Punching someone in the face is a completely different thing.
The only thing I can relate to is I can think of with how lawsuit happy we are with everything. It doesn't matter if, with everything. I almost think of it like, people who are looking for, a soccer foul. Like,
yes.
if you put a hands on somebody, it could be as hard as you want, or you could two-finger that bitch. But if it's on camera with the right angle, anybody's going to say that these bruises are caused by him or her. They were too rough. Like, you're a 3-second video away from being viral for being from the right angle.
Absolutely, depending on the angle. Yeah, and that's my point. Is if you're gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna put your hands on people, put your hands on them with some force, with some power, with some expectation of, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing to you. And if they're bigger, faster, or stronger and they can pull away from you, then so be it. But at least you tried, and you didn't go half-assed where now you're surprised. Because tension gets tension, and like I train with some guys that I just think are amazing trainers when it comes to combatives. But like, I don't know, it's like a weird tangent like I just ended up on, but I think that's part of the problem in law enforcement is we're afraid to use force. So when they use force, it's ineffective. When they put their hands on people, it's ineffective. And it gives the person when they touch them, I think any person who's actually a criminal, who is actually a violent person, or who knows violence, when they feel that kind of touch, it gives them the creeps. They're like, ugh, like, what are you doing? Are you trying to hold my hand? But they understand at an animal level true force. When someone grabs them, it's almost like mama grab on hold of their hand, right? When someone grabs a hold of them, like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy's not playing around. This is a person grabbing a hold of me to control me, and that gives you a higher likelihood of submission. It's not going to say that if the guy's like, I'm going to fight you, if this guy touches me, I'm going to fight him, and you touch me, the fight's going to be on. But if I can control you good enough, it gives me an advantage. It's the same thing when talking to people, sir this, sir that, sir this, sir that, because we actually have officers getting in trouble now for cussing on their body cameras. Oh, fuck, right? Oh, written. You're getting written. You said fuck. Well, like, science tells us that is a coping mechanism the brain just uses, right? Like when you hurt yourself, do you go, golly gosh darn it? Or do you cuss sometimes? You know what I mean? because fuck feels good. So, God damn it. Like you hurt yourself, and it's something that just comes out, and it's a trigger to push endorphins and push chemicals through your brain. So when officers do it in these situations, a lot of times you'll hear command staff say, I understand why they said it, but I don't like it, and we can't have people talking that way. They have to be professional all the time. And that's ridiculous. Like, really? So they're getting shot at and they say, oh fuck, oh shit, you're gonna get them in trouble for that? How does that make sense? Right? Now there's a difference between walking up to someone at a bus stop and go, stand up, motherfucker. Like that's unacceptable, right? But if I say, hey sir, stand up for me real quick. No, fuck you, dude. Why are you doing this? Put your fucking hands behind your back, and I grab a hold of them. To me, that's perfectly acceptable. Because in my view, like when I came on as a cop in '99, we were there not as law enforcement. We were there as peacekeepers, right? Well, I didn't cuss at people. I didn't abuse people. I'd never have like beaten people senseless, but I have gotten in foot pursuits where once we caught each other, it was like, I'm going to kick your ass. And then when the dude says, okay, okay, cool. But if the dude got away or he punched me in the face and got away, he won it because you suck, right? Dude, I ramble on a lot. But the main thing is force. If you're going to use it, it needs to be used. Otherwise, it's ineffective. And ineffective force tends to look like excessive force. I can't remember who the first person that said that was. But I have found in my job as part of reviewing every use of force like that, I have found that to be true. That ineffective or weak force tends to evolve into or devolve into or look like excessive force. Whereas completely different when two men like you and I go up to a guy and just grab a hold of him, lay down, and we put him on the ground, put his hands behind his back, take him into custody. Like that. And that's how my general life used to go. Does that make sense?
No, this whole time I'm just kind of based on our original going was just kind of the difference between my background and yours, or the two sides of the coin rather. We had a couple of people talk about the where they came from. County attorney dismissed a charge of mine because I was too mean and used bad words. I mean, you see this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
The defunding the police and the lack of support of police, and the inability for prosecutors who are working pretty much for the people that they're supposed to be prosecuting more than they are the people grabbing them up. It also plays into that. But what I was thinking about was you guys, or law enforcement versus us, is I think a lot of it tends to be, you were talking about attitude of, I had this conversation with JR. The attitude of how you do the same job. I'll talk about clearance as one of them. When we go take down a building, we're allowed to point our guns 360 degrees around the building, on the backside of the building, to defend ourselves in environments where anybody and everybody could be a threat. And
Absolutely.
That just because I point a gun at you doesn't mean I'm going to shoot you, but I'm going to put off the presence that I'm willing to, so that you then go, oh, fuck, and go someplace else. And as we clear, I don't care if you have a gun or not, you're getting a gun pointed at you until I have you under control. And every person on target gets flex cuffed. Like flex cuffed, controlled, ushered into a room, and until we figure out who you are, where you came from, if the person we're looking for is there, and it's for your safety as well as ours. And whereas I'm not going to say none, I'm not a cop, but I've had this conversation, and even the posture in which we clear is different than how a lot of law enforcement agencies will clear a structure. And some departments clear muzzle down, even on their sweeps. That blew my mind the first time I heard that. Looking over your gun on a clearance, gun at low ready, and because you can't point your gun at somebody who doesn't need to get shot. That from our world is that's not even a thing. It would never be something we even thought of. And so I think about the difference in attitude in how we do clearance, because for us, when you're a lone platoon or squad or whatever in a village that could entirely turn against you, not just one or two guys, the one guy you're going to serve a warrant on, when every house in the neighborhood could spin up and all of a sudden you're fighting the entire neighborhood. The attitude in which you get to target, control your set a posture, control or has an impact on how you are interacted with by everybody. And so I just think about the fact of how we're allowed to treat people. And it's not like we fucking just start beating on people either, especially towards the end of both wars. It very much turns into, it's not the same, but there was much more oversight by the lawyers and the leadership to, you know, get to basically push us out there to possibly get in a knife fight. We're going to tie one hand behind your back because we can't let you be too aggressive. And so it just makes me think about how you were talking about how a lot of guys, I think, try to make the correlation and talk to how our job is so applicable to you guys, instead of opening up the conversation of what I could possibly have, or a guy from CAG or a combat controller or a PJ or a ranger or whatever. Like, hey, this is my experience. This is what, let's talk, you and me, a SEAL to a SWAT cop or whatever. What do I have that I can give you to help to make you better? Not here's all the things I think that would make you better.
Yes.
Let's have the conversation of what you're looking for that I may be able to offer you. And I think
that's probably the best way to say it is, hey, let's have the conversation. What are you looking for to change and why? And what do I know that might help you? Right? That's the perfect question to ask people. Well, I just want to know how you show me how you clear a room. It isn't the same. And that's the reason I know JR knows it very well. If you go in and point your gun at every single person on the typical search warrant that we would serve, right? Now, we may hit a house we know has kids in it, we know has elderly people in it, but we know has a very dangerous dude in it. And we would prefer to take that guy off somewhere else. In his car is my favorite, right? I want him in a car, I'll lock him down, and that's where the bad stuff happens to him. But we'll blow the front and back door off a house and the garage and all sorts of other stuff. We'll fly drones around, and we will come in, and you can't point your gun at 12-year-old girls. You cannot. And you can't point your gun at grandma or grandpa when you hit this house, right? We used to call it the we, the women, and the weak, right? Like old people, women, and children do not need guns pointed at them. Now, even the clearance, and I think a lot of SWAT guys start to realize that the more entries they actually do. And I had a conversation with a guy, this is 2 seconds. I had a conversation with a guy this weekend at a class from Force Science, and I said, I'll be honest with you, because you can be on a SWAT team, and it really doesn't carry a lot of water with me if you're not active and have been opposed and actually dealt with things. But if you're just doing dance floor tactics, you do your shoot house runs or like your 4 search warrants you do a year, it just doesn't carry as much weight with me, right? But clearing through your optic into an unknown structure that you know is occupied with people who don't need guns pointed at them is almost inviting shooting the wrong person at times. Where overseas in the very beginning, and my understanding, way different places and different environments were handled, that was okay. In Iraq, it was okay in the very beginning. We get it. That thing happens. And then things started to change, like you said, with the lawyers got involved, right? They're like, we got to start doing this different. And then the tactics changed. But the soft community, when they teach law enforcement, I wish that was the question. What do you guys do now? Would you please show me? Have you ever dealt, with this situation? What would you do in this situation? Have you dealt with this? Or is this something that normally happens to you? No? All right, here's some answers we have for that. Now, does that make sense? Here's some answers we have for that.
That's the thing that unless you're open to the conversation, I think, and that's how I've always approached it, because, luckily, I befriended a lot of, maybe it's my personality, I don't know. I learned very early that my community had a lot to offer, but there was a lot of information to be gained from a lot of other sources, and not just tactical information. For me, it came, the wake-up call came on the competitive shooting side.
Yes.
That we thought we were badass shooters. And holy fuck. And that was the discussion I had the other day. People were like, well, you're saying all these tactical guys aren't good shooters. I said, no, I'm saying that they're good enough to do our job.
Yes.
Like, if you can be a fucking lead slinging dude that I will go to war with. I will go assault the gates of hell with. I will follow you to wherever that leads. But if you ask me if that dude's a fucking just straight up like shooter, I'll be like, nah.
We'll never get that guy out of D class. He's just barely getting by.
Like, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go plate to plate with you through a door. And that guys get really fragile egos on that, because, well, in my platoon, I'm the dude. Yeah, but I know platoons that I was the best shooter that I had out of, or one of the top in this platoon, and I'd go shoot a USPSA match and like would be like, fucking bottom third,
Yep.
like especially early on. And so when I shot PRS matches, I got taken out. I went straight out of sniper school. I was like top 3 in the class. Like me and my shooting buddy just crushed. I went out and shot a PRS match and got skull drug. And I was like,
Yep.
what the fuck is this? Like I am one of the better shots in like our air. Like, and then I stayed in our community and realized I still was one of the better shots.
Yep.
But around my friends that I shot competitively with, I was not. And so that's a long way to say I befriended a lot of guys who were law enforcement breachers or law enforcement designated marksmen or whatever, that because they did things that we never had to do. I've never had to sit in a football stadium and do an Overwatch. I've never had to watch a parade. I've never had to but they've also never had to sit 3 rooms deep with triple screens and they've never had to do a vehicle hide. They've never had to,
Yep.
So there's some different things that doesn't mean they're better, doesn't mean I'm better. It just means that we have stuff to teach each other. And so I really extended on I'm open to hearing anything you guys can give me. And if I have something to give you, let's talk. That leads to now when I try to build classes or I talk to agencies or if a department's trying to contact me and go, hey, we want to bring you in. What kind of classes are you teaching? I'm like, the question that you're going to get from me is, what are you guys looking to get taught? Like, what are you guys looking to work on? And let's have a class that's more of a conversation. Like I went and worked with the Santa Barbara guys, and Eric and those guys down there are fucking fantastic. We've done it twice, once with JR and I did it a couple of years prior. And it's 100% a conversation on what do you guys feel you guys want to work on? Oh yeah, I can 100% cover that. Let's do this. Instead of like, I know what's best for you. I'm going to give you this stamped curriculum that you only need 15% of, and that's what you really want to work on. But no, fuck off. I'm going to still give you the 85% that you give no shits about.
Yeah. Nope, dude. That is probably I've watched I think probably 2 or 3 of your live shows, and I've watched. I message you every once in a while when you put like, hey, let's ask a question. And those are the things I love about it. And you always direct answer back like, well, I know what you're saying, and this is why. And I'm like, you know what? He gets it. I've had people ask me, hey, will you come teach a class with us? Will you? Could you put a class on, or even open enrollment stuff? I'm just not ready to do that yet, right? But I got asked for an agency to come teach a shooting class, like a shooting development 2-day class. And I was like, well, what do we want to do? Do you guys have red dots? No, but we want them. How about we do something much cheaper and let's just come have a conversation about how you start that process instead of just shooting guns. How do you start that? Here's my outline. Here's Bago is the guy that runs the program with me at where I work. Here's the outline that we put together. We've put over 800 officers through for our place. And this is why it works. And this is all the leeway we give them. And here's all the options that we give them. That might be a better option for you. Oh, fuck, I never thought of that. They just want someone to come out and show them, like, we have money to spend, just come teach us to shoot. I don't really have anything to show you, most likely. I'm sure I do. I'm sure there's stuff I've learned from Rob Latham and Pannone and you and all these guys that we've trained with, Jedi and all these dudes, that I can impart to you, but I learned it from someone else. They learned it from someone else who learned it from someone else who figured it out in 1895, right? But I love the idea of the discussion. Like one of the biggest things I get questions about is I have like old recruits that I've had who come through and ask me like personal questions about, one of them asked me about revenge from the guy getting shot and like just ideas of how to deal with this life. But the other stuff is about gear, which I don't care about. And then it's like CQB. Well, how do I get good at CQB? And it's like, well, why do you want to be good at CQB? Because building clearing as a patrol officer is not CQB. It's not. It's building clearing, right? You're going in and I don't know if anyone's here. And the search warrant entry of a SWAT team is a completely different animal. And it should be taught that way. It should be thought of that way. But the idea of like, what do I look for? We had that question earlier. What do I look for when I enter a room? People, doors, hides. When it comes to people, it's, do I need to kill anybody, beat their ass, arrest them, or save them, right? Deal with people first. Doors, are they open, closed, locked, right? Hidden. Hides, find them. Dead space is dead space. But that's what makes me laugh a lot when I've observed other elements and teams going through shoot house drills with no furniture. They do these hostage rescue entries, and I shit you not, like they'll clear, the standard like FBI shoot house build with you can turn into an airplane and all that crap. They'll clear that building in about 40 seconds. And I just look at it and going, there's no fucking way in hell. You can't clear that building in 40 seconds with only 14 dudes. Because all I need to do is add furniture. And 4 people in the front room who are no shoots, like, and you just got to deal with them. That's it. 4 grandmas in the front room. Go. Deal with it. Oh, we know they're here. We're going here. You're gonna leave them. You're gonna bypass. You can't do that. That's a rule, right? Like just the actual ability for people to understand what real life is blows my mind. I used to make jokes like that forum PNS. I was on that. That was like my first thing I ever got on, and then it drove me nuts because it was fucking stupid. I had a thing on there that says everything about hostage rescue is super easy until you shut in your shoot house with the lights on and the doors unlocked. But let's do it someplace you don't know. Let's shut the lights off and let's lock 4 doors. Let's lock 1 door and watch that shit show fucking emerge, right? Because people go through these dance steps and they think they're capable of a certain thing because they've never really sat back and just asked the question of what don't I know? What haven't I thought about? And it's probably easier just to go somewhere like you and go, here's what I know. Here's what we've been doing. And all you have to ask them is the question is, well, did you ever think about this? What would you do if this happened? I don't know.
That's why you have to walk before you run. You have to do the steps, right?
Yep.
And a couple of things I wanted to say about what you just said, which is one, CQB. Like you covered it pretty well in that there's a lot of different levels to one-man CQB, 5-man, 18-man. Like how are you approaching this house? How much manpower you have?
Why are we here? Yeah.
The flow and how quickly you can move through that house. If you've got to train 25 people long, yeah, you can push those grandmas into a corner, have 5 guys who are dealing with them, and you've got 14 bodies to keep clear.
Yeah, you got everybody.
If you come in, if you're first 4 guys in the scene with an active shooter, and you hear shots inside, and you have to go, and you come in, there's 4 people in that front room, decision time. The other thing I see is when you start, it's great when you're doing a shoot house and the only noise you have is gunfire versus a screaming baby, a screaming grandma, a woman who's sobbing hysterically, and your team lead is in the same room, or there's somebody who's trying to deal with something and the comms is coming through and he's trying to talk to somebody. Watch how calm your team lead is when those things start coming off. And then you have a breach problem, and then you have, or God forbid, you have in the first room, somebody gets injured, like on your team.
Yep.
Like you catch a trips. Like, I mean, shit happens. You swing a sledgehammer and you catch it in somebody's thigh. Like, fuck, man, dude, shit happens. Then
dogs come out and bite your ass. The pit bulls come loose. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's the flow in CQB is one of those things that everybody wants to do. I want to do a CQB class. Well, what the fuck type, like, are you just doing entries? Are you just doing, like, my big thing is hallways. I watch hallways on Instagram and it drives me fucking crazy.
Yes.
Because you see there's absolutely, it's kind of like the early Iraq versus late Afghanistan transition for us versus the guys who came into the war who had been operators forever and what they knew was gospel on how you dealt with things versus the guys who 4 deployments later, 5 deployments later, had kicked in hundreds of doors on active targets in war zones and were on live targets with people with belt feds 2 rooms deep, down hallways with portholes. Like no, you're not putting 20 fucking dudes in a hallway to deal with doors. You're just not. And so that's why you watch these things of people who loosely understand the concepts but really don't understand CQB, who are teaching it and putting it out there like this is a prime example of, and it's like, no.
Yeah, like, it is one of my favorite things. I don't remember, I think it was you that posted the video, and my answer to it was like, I don't know what to say. Like, I know Steve Fisher knew one of the guys who was in one of these videos, and you just watch it and you're going, but like, people will watch that and go, this is what I want to learn, even if they're demonstrating something completely different. Because everything they showed was like, I would never do any of it that way. Just on my experience. Like I know it wouldn't work that well for me in my environment. But yeah, like CQB is its own thing. I wish people would get away from it and learn. Like if you can shoot really, really good, you're going to be better off at CQB. If you could make decisions, which is even more important, because I've made far more decisions than I've shot people during CQB. Far by
that
a
is,
magnitude of 1,000.
That is the thing that I try to tell everybody is, and this is even, you know, on the unit level stuff for guys go, what makes soft soft? And I said, soft is not soft because we're really badass at advanced shit. It's not. It's because we've done the basic stuff so many fucking times, and we've been given so much stress doing the basic stuff that the basic stuff is something that we don't have to think about. And what I mean by that is, like, when we do, you know, urban stuff, like they're going to put 5 guys down in your platoon. They're going to have freaking RD sims going off, fucking red and green spray paint. Like, you're going to have the worst of the worst scenarios in training. So, and that happens all the time. So you're desensitized to it. It makes you a really shitty civilian, but it makes you a badass operator, because the amount of stress and stressors you can put on somebody and still have them problem solve is really high. And so I tell people, it's like shooting, you know, Aussie rappel on the side of the building, you know, down, or doing combat roll on a vehicle, like reloads and all this stuff. I said, it's vehicle, or all these things are based around the fact that you can process it fast enough to complete those more advanced tasks, advanced tasks. But if you're having to process how you want to reload, or how you want to shoulder your gun, or the communication that's coming into your ears, or where your buddies are, without it being subconscious, you're now taking up processing speed and attention that you have to dedicate to doing remedial tasks that you shouldn't have to think about. So it's not like, yeah, we know how to rappel and do all these things, but that's something we can just do a refresher and go like, okay, cool, I can rappel again. I don't need to rappel every fucking day, but I absolutely should be able to remember I shouldn't have to think about how I load my gun, where my kit is, how to manage my comms, how to, like, those are things that should be automatic. And so people want to do all the you know, live action role playing, tactical band camp, like Steve likes to say, all these things. It's like the real work that makes the guys who are at the real high speed units that everybody wants to be at is the fact that we do so much fundamental work over and over and over again. When you take a platoon of guys, it doesn't matter how many guys have done how many deployments. Dude, hold on. Hey, I'll be about in a sec. The first week we're at, you know, for our kill house, everybody's like, okay, guys, from the high ready, we're going to brush off all that rust from the last 3 months of doing mobility, all these things. It's not like we go, okay, kill house, day 1. It's like, no, we're going to go back over 2-man entry. Then we're going to whack over entry. The guy who's done 7 platoons, who's the team lead, is in the stack doing 2-man entries, is in the stack doing 4-man entries again and again and again. It could be his 1400th time doing that same fucking drill, but his footwork, he's getting it back in. He's, you know, and all of this is done to react off of the guys that now he has to deploy with. And this is a point to your previous thing on CQB being different. I deploy with the same guys, and very rarely do we overlap units that I have to deploy or do clearance with somebody who I haven't worked the last 2 years with. And so I know, like, if you and I were in the same platoon, I know what you look like on nods. I know how you move. I know how you communicate. Like, I can read your body language. And if you're on a team, like 20 years, you know how the guys in your team work. But if you're a patrol cop and you might roll onto a scene and you're like, hey, dude, we're going in. Yep. And it's 3 guys from 2 different departments you've never fucking worked with.
And you know what? That is actually an awesome point to make too. Because I used to make these declarative statements. Like, I used to say, like, not all cops need guns. And I still stick by that. Like, in an agency my size, not all of them need guns. And you can hire them. We can hire people to be actual investigators. They never need to go to the street. But sheriff's office, state police, small town cops, from, like, when I go teach classes in New Jersey, it's like town. As I go down the road, 12 cops, 8 cops, 4 cops, 50 cops. these little towns that are butted up against each other. And I'll talk to these guys in class who are all part-time SWAT dudes, except for the state guys. And they're like, oh yeah, like I go on a call here with a guy from this town and this town, but you're all in this town. Yeah. We just all kind of work this area. It's almost like one giant police department with different police departments. And I'm going, how often do you like work with your own guys? He goes, well, there's only 2 of us on shift at a night. I'm like, no shit. But that's a different world than the guys that I work with, right? Where if they show up to call, 9 people show up. 9 more cops will show up. Or 20 or 30 cops will show up. And then a 30, 40-man SWAT team will show up if it's that big. Smaller town, real cops, like that's what dude, there's so much you and I could talk about. Like with your team was dudes that trained together, worked together a very specific amount to make up each platoon, right? My SWAT team was very specific. Like I know every single guy's kit, what it looks like on nods, out of nods, daytime, nighttime, moving, everybody's walk, everybody's way they hold their elbows, everything. And I know exactly what every dude on that team was going to do. If he was in front of me in a hall and his body leaned over and his head turned, he's going to this room. If his body started leaning this way, I know he looks at a long threat. That's his worry. He's just going to bypass this open door and I'm going to take it with the next guy. I don't have to talk to him. I just know that's what's going to happen. But I couldn't even remotely do that in a room full of patrol guys that I don't know because I don't have a clue what they're going to do. And then they're looking at me going, what do I do? Like now I'm directing traffic. Cover this long, come over here, move over here, come over here, come over here. You and me going in this room, got it, go, let's go do this. You hold here. And then it's like you're in there grabbing people like mom, right? But that I wander off, that. Policing isn't the same from department size to department purpose. The FBI is different than New York PD. NYPD is the largest. It's a damn army, right? But when you look at NYPD and you have friends there and you train with people there, like even the ESU guys, which is a gigantic portion compared, like it's bigger than most police departments, just their ESU, right? And these dudes are doing bridge work, high angle work. Like I did high angle work, rescue work. We all got TRT certified. We're on SCBA for confined space. We got a lot of training in my department. But then I go to other places and I've literally found people on SWAT teams where I look at them and I'm like, I don't think you could get hired to be a cop where I work. And you're on a fucking SWAT team? Like you're an overweight, dumb idiot. So that's where the whole SWAT team doesn't, carry weight with me that much as just a word. Oh, this guy's on SWAT. What does that mean? If you tell me someone's a SEAL, I know they all went through the same process. I know they all did the same, at least went through the same selection. You got idiots there too. And you got super high performers. But they all, at least, everybody knows everybody did the same thing, right? We all went through the same stuff. I don't know that to be the same across this country from the West Coast to the East Coast. And I'll tell you, it honestly gets weird. We're West Coast policing, right? Us, LAPD, San Diego, Las Vegas, San Fran even. It's West Coast policing. And I think West Coast policing pushes into Texas and maybe New Mexico, Colorado. Definitely Washington, Oregon, stuff like that. But Midwest policing is different than East Coast. When you talk East Coast, New York, New Jersey, all those different things, just the idea of what a cop is completely different across this entire country. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But your military soft unit is the same East Coast or West Coast. Now, I know you guys are like our 51, 52, 53, and 54 squad. We had 4 squads, right? Everybody else is a damn idiot except for my squad because they're stupid and they're slow. So team 3, team 4, and second platoon is a bunch of dumb shits, right? But first platoon is freaking awesome. Red's a bunch of dumb shit, fucking cowboys, and gold's the way to go. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, everybody's always better than the other one, but don't talk shit about my brother or I'll have to come get you.
It's kind of like, they're assholes, but there are assholes.
They're my asshole, yeah.
We're the only ones who are allowed to talk shit. That's weird. I never thought about that either. I've told people, I go, there's obvious differences if you're what's it called, a harbor cop in Miami versus a rural cop or a rural sheriff in Wyoming. Like, and a Green Beret is vastly different than both of those. Like,
yep.
And so that's why I think like the conversation is so important because, and what's lost is, now you brought this up here, is that that cop in Wyoming, that harbor cop in Miami, and that somehow, you see how I want to phrase it, aspires in some way to be or train or do or play whatever they view as our job. And what I tell people is like, well, even your perception of what our job is wrong. And so, like, I go, you guys, everybody thinks a SEAL is based off of movies, and so your guys' view of what our job actually is probably 10% of our job. And like, and they go, oh, that's fucking badass. You guys shot 500,000 rounds. I go, yeah, but we also picked up those 500,000 rounds. So for 3 weeks on the range, we're shooting all day. And then guess what? For a whole fucking week, we're shirtless, getting sunburned, like picking up all that brass we just shot. And then you're cussing at all the belt-fed gunners. And you're like, why the fuck did you sit here and shoot 4 belts of ammunition, you dipshit? Like, but I love my job. And I love, all my soft brothers from another mother, like fucking right on. But everybody thinks our job is something that's very different. I mean, it's like, that's my only relation to a cop, is what everybody thinks a cop is. I can only imagine is such a different thing than reality.
In every way, shape, or form. In every department, like my department is, I'm one of the largest cities in the United States, right? And I've gone and I've taught some of the smallest towns in the country with 8 police officers on a breaching class, and he's a member of a regional SWAT team. And it's like, you're telling me, and he's actually super squared away. That's the smallest department I've ever been personally involved with, 8 officers. And I'm like, you're telling me in a gene pool of 8, you had someone that was able to be on a SWAT team? And he actually was. He was very squared away. But does that make sense? Like that depth of gene pool, like that's where SWAT, SOF, special response, like all these things, some people have to admit, and it's going to hurt. It hurts a lot of asses. A lot of people get butthurt when they hear that, when you say, like, not everybody can do this. Not everyone can do that job. I have some super capable dudes that I work with who couldn't be on San Diego SWAT team because there's a swim component. It's that simple. There's a swim. It's not even like I got to be a scuba SEAL. You have to do a swim to be on San Diego SWAT team. They couldn't. There's no freaking way in hell they could pass it. And I've got dudes who can barely get down off the tower when I take them up there for those quals. They're absolutely petrified of heights.
That's why I always look at it like this: is I prefer to treat everybody like a peer, because it doesn't make anybody better. They made the decision they did for their life. Yes. And what I mean, like, I know some really good motherfuckers who decided to not, who in buds or in whatever, who decided it wasn't for them. Does that mean they're a pussy? No. That their eyes opened to what this job really was, and they decided they wanted to do something else. And these are guys who went on to join SWIC, or they got out and are now with HRT, or now with like super squared away, solid motherfuckers that do less of them because they quit buds. Quit. Like
it might even be a level of maturity where they go, I don't want to fucking do this. I am not this semper ura dude.
And what's funny is I did 14 years in the Navy, and guess what? Guess how many quitters that when I talked to them and they went, oh, I went to buds, and I'm like, oh, really? And they were like, yeah, I quit. Wasn't for me. You want to know how many I've met? 2 people looked me in the eye in the Navy and went, oh yeah, I went to buds, man, dude. Wednesday at Hell Week, I just went, dude, this isn't for me. I fucking shook their hands and said, dude, fucking badass, man.
That's badass. Like,
you want to know how many fucking dudes I've met with shin splints or
excuses,
or hundreds and hundreds of dudes who were like, nah, man, I fucking, they had it out for me. I had shin splints. I got medically rolled. I herniated a disc.
They didn't like me.
I'm a buds instructor. You want to know the percentage of guys who fucking quit? Go, dude, this is 99.7%. Like, some guys, either it's a performance drop, like they didn't quit, like they fail something or whatever, and some guys get hurt. But the vast majority self-remove themselves from the program. Like, dude, and accept that and go forth and do be badass at whatever you choose to be next. Like, it doesn't make you less of a person, a man, whatever. SWAT, being a cop, all these things. Like, I, I did a MacTac class. I knew some guys with LAPD years ago, and they did a MacTac class, and they asked us to come in because I was teaching land warfare at the time. And so they're like, hey, can you guys come in, because this class is based around the not Nairobi, what was that fucking coordinated
In
attack?
India,
Yeah,
the hotel.
yeah, years
Um,
ago. And they said
Jesus
SWAT
Christ.
are so singularly focused. We just want to talk about awareness and 360 environments and whatever. And that's what you guys do. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll come in. The guys who are teaching it were all full-time D platoon guys, fucking badass. And very much, peer to peer. We're like, hey, yeah, we're here to help however you guys want. The guys who are attending the class, sorry, I had a fucking mustache hair in my mouth. Were part-time guys in Southern California. And it was insane, the egos, like during a lot of the drills and stuff, where we were like, hey man, have you thought about this? Like literally just like scoffing off our input. And I was like, dude, and like the LAPD guys, because they had some kind of status that we didn't have because we weren't cops, so we had no fucking clue, had to come in and go, hey man, they're trying to, none of us face this stuff. This is something that, but this is a big push to kind of open awareness in law enforcement. That's what MacTac is. Like, we brought these guys in, like, and we weren't coming at it like we fucking know. It was just like, hey man, like maybe all 14 of you don't need to have your guns pointed at one front door. Like,
thank you. Yes.
like 2 guys, 1 can probably cover that door if somebody pokes their head out, and other people can look around, see what's going on, communicate, get stuff ready, coordinate. You guys don't all need to be like on that front door behind the patrol car. So we started doing these drills where it was like, hey, we're going to shoot paint now. You guys are going to go attack this thing. From when we say go, it's 360. And like, I walked around this Connex box, and again, 14 dudes on the line. I'm literally on the left side of them. I've got a paint gun. Not a single person could see me. And I stood there for a sec, and I'm like,
should I?
and they're like, I'm like, okay.
On.
Like, I fucking painted like 12 of them. And they were like, oh, I'm like, dude, what we're talking about? And they were like, well, that would never happen. It's like, until it does.
Yep. So that's, dude, like, man, like, we just need everybody to kind of understand, like, ask the question, like, and especially cops are the worst. So cops will stand, they like to file outboard from things. So one guy will use cover and he'll look out, but the next guy, he has to see. I want to see. So he has to see, and he goes over to the right a little more. And then the third guy goes up, I want to see, and he goes up third. And then the fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh. If everybody were to go away, there'd be one dude standing 5 feet away from the cover, right? So my buddy Kyle, we're on a hostage thing. This is a few years ago. And the dude just starts shooting out the front of the house at us. Boom, 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 boom. He just starts shooting out the front of the house with an AR-15. And Kyle's out, the shooting starts, so Kyle goes, oh, I want to see. So he pokes his head out around the front of the armor, and a piece of a round hits the armor right in front of his face. Just kind of boom. And he's like, whoo. And he gets back, and he told us after, he's like, I don't need to see shit. Like, if he's shooting, I'm just going to stay where I'm at. And if he pops out somewhere where I can shoot him, I'll shoot him. But I don't need to find out where he's shooting from. I'm like, no shit, dumbass. You almost got killed. But that whole thing was a freaking mess, dude. We got shot the fuck up going through that one. But yeah, he fucking pink, huh? Like, I don't need to look. But that's the same thing. yeah. SEAL guy, whatever. You're not a cop. You don't know what we're talking about. And those, like, even MacTac, I want to ask guys, because whenever they do active shooting, like Mumbai, right? That was what it was, Mumbai. It's always like the whole SWAT team shows up at once. I'm like, y'all, all like 80 of you motherfuckers got here at the same time to rescue everybody in there, and you're going to go to this active shooter? Yeah, like what, how is that realistic? When you talk about like the Navy Yard, things that have actually happened, and when you talk to dudes that have been on actual active shooters, like, who are you going after? Well, we heard gunshots on the far side of the building, so we went after it. And then the gunshots were over here. What did the gunshots end up being? Ballistic breaching shotguns that nobody was at. You're not on the same net as the dude showing up. You're not on the same, the same comms. And you got a ballistic breacher up there who's opening doors. But that's the only gun being fired. And what do we actually train people to do? Go to gunfire. So there's shooters over here. There's shooters over here. All these things start happening because you have a valid technique being used in an invalid way. Like understanding when ballistic breaching should be used versus explosive versus just manual breaching. No one's shooting guns. We're not in a hurry to do anything. Why, if the door's locked, do you need to open it? Why don't you start heading your ass into the building and find out if anyone's shooting or anyone's screaming or give you info? You don't need to open every door as you come to it. No one's shooting guns right now, dude, right? But when people start doing, like, people don't even take that into consideration. If I show up on an active shooter and I hear gunshots, is it a possibility that it's a ballistic breacher opening doors? Yes, it is. And that's what it was at Virginia, in the Navy Yard. At the UPS store, completely different story. At the guy at the one of the other plants in, I think it was Minnesota or Wisconsin, completely different story. They got there and heard shots, and they're like, well, let's get in there. They stacked a bunch of guys with shields up going towards the door and got shot through the outside stucco and hit 3 people because the shield's facing forward, not sideways. If you're not, he has to come out the door to shoot you. If he's inside the building and shoots through the walls, he's just going to shoot through the walls. Why is the shield facing where nobody is? And it's like those weird little tiny questions that people don't think about. Like even in the hallways, right? Well, I'm going to have the shield go down the hallway to this door. How about you turn it sideways so you don't get shot through the wall? Well, what about that door? Dude, the door handle's got to move. It has to make noise and it has to open for someone to get you from it. And when the bad man shows up, it better be a bad man with a gun when you shoot him. It better not be a 12-year-old daughter, right? Like there's so much stuff.
What kills me is and it's the Hollywood aspect of it,
Yep.
or training on clearance is the narration of clearance.
God.
And what I mean by everybody has to yell exactly what they're doing so everybody knows that they're doing.
Open door right.
Like, if shots aren't going off, so you can't hear, see, do whatever, and like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yes.
There's nothing impressive than watching a team do a silent house run. Like, dude, and there's not a single like move. No. Like everything is nonverbal. Everything. Like, and you get to the end and you go, dude, fucking good run, cool. Like that's a lot of like the really high speed. Dude, they're silent until shots fired, and then you start hearing chatter. Like, and that's just because why? Like you're listening for noises, so are they.
Yes.
Like, if I hear everybody fucking yelling and fucking shuffling around and beating shit against walls and whatever, and I have a gun and I'm fucking know I'm going out in a blaze of glory, I'm not waiting for you to come through that door. Why wouldn't I just fucking start if I have whatever, why wouldn't I start shooting the fucking wall?
We've had it happen to us several times. Boom. Entry. We're awesome. Here we come. Up through the walls. You're like, oh shit. Zip, zip, bullets flying by your face, hitting the freaking microwave in the kitchen, hitting everything, spice racks exploding, bullets flying everywhere, and nobody got hit. We went around the corner, dude ran out of ammo, gave up like a bitch. But
that's even soft.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I mean, war stories in early Iraq that are somehow said through social media that are probably half truths anyways. We couldn't just go, oh, dude, they're shooting through the wall, belt fed.
No, it's not happening. Yeah.
You're half a family too. And, you know, reporters don't like that. Neither does leadership. And so, like, we're not Russians. We're not Spetsnaz. We don't just fucking kick in a door and start opening up over a bed. Like, no. So, if you have to realize, like, the people you're going against don't have the rules that you do. And so that's the whole thing of, like, you know, fighting in an urban scenario. It's like, you're trying to keep command and control. If you're fighting a bunch, 20 completely untrained dudes that we just said, like, hey, go with God, handed an AK to, like, dude, they're playing paintball until they die. Like, you're trying
and it's dangerous.
Yeah. You're trying to make sure that you know where all 17 of your dudes are so you don't shoot somebody and you can maneuver and control and command and like, you don't end up in a Polish ambush and like, but again, you're playing dudes that have no fucking rules. Like, they don't give a shit if they shoot each other and they'll Polish ambush the fuck out of you. And then you're like, fuck, like Death Blossom. Like, it's just.
Yeah, what's the answer? There isn't one. But
I don't.
There is, I'd love to have another conversation with you too. If you guys got questions, if you're watching this, if you got something like we're missing or doing that, please ask us. If you want us to discuss something, let me know. But there's so much that I laugh at because the longer I did it, the longer I was around it, the longer I learned that it depends. And anyone that gives you
that curve.
Yes.
There's an official name for it, but it's like.
Yeah, it's like I have it figured out, and then, oh crap, I really don't know anything. And that's what it turns into. It's 100%, it's 100% true. I started to realize, I'm like, I have gotten by on luck more than anything in the world. literally luck. I think I can't remember, it's 56, I think, rounds have been fired at me. Like, and we know these things because they freaking do round counts and they count bullet holes and how much the bad guy shot. I've been shot at through doors, walls, windows, everything else. I've only been hit with a bullet once. So, like when you talk to your aviator buddies, right? Big sky, little bullet. Um, Little bullet, big sky, or big bullet, little sky. Like most aviators, especially helicopter pilots, are like, big sky, little bullet. I'm never going to get shot. Shoot at me all you want. It's too hard to hit me. Um, but it's the exact opposite of that for some people. They've been shot at with one bullet, hit in the face. Does it mean, you know what I mean? So, like, I don't take my experience to mean I did anything right. I just got fucking lucky a bunch. I got lucky like crazy. And it doesn't mean I did anything well. And I've been present when I've watched other people shooting people because it just wasn't my turn. I didn't have the person to shoot in front of me. And it's like, I guess we're done here. And everything is, like, all right, here we go. We're good. Let's continue on with what we're doing, or let's finish and process this scene and get these people out of the car with the dead guy in the front seat. I don't even know where I wanted to go with that. There's so much depth, right, to this, what some people see as the simplest question. I think there's so much depth to it when you actually start to figure things out that you got to be able to. And I think unless you're being honest with people, you got to go, look, like, I've experienced something like this, but like, what do you mean by the deep corner? What does that mean? Like, how deep is the corner? Is it a 4x4 room, or is it a 400 by 400 foot banquet hall? Like, what does that actually mean?
Here's the. Somebody told me this once. I'm probably, I imagine I might be being witty right now, but I'm not that smart. Is beware the people who have all the answers and listen to the people who have all the questions. And what I mean by that, if you're, people should respond to a lot of stuff in this industry with another question. What's the best all around X? What would you do in this situation? The answer to that 99% of the time is going to be a question to get more clarifying information and context. And so if somebody has an easy answer to a question like best, or a very ambiguous general question, then I'd be wary of how much experience they actually have. Because I'm the same way. Like, I felt like when I got out, I'd done 14 years. I'd done, my operating days in my community were essentially done. Like, I was going to be a senior chief and then, whatever. And so I had done all the deployments I was going to do, and I felt like I was just hitting my stride. And so the guys that I see that get out after like one or two deployments, and I'm like, dude, you never ran a floor. You never ran an assault team. You weren't a fire team leader. You weren't a squad leader. You never ran a house. You never had to control anybody. You were literally a pawn for somebody else to point where they wanted you to go. But you're going to get out and teach like multi-room flow. Like, you know how to do it on the individual operator level side. You don't understand, or you haven't done it long enough to understand how those things flow together. Or how you control, and you go, hey, hold left, push right, hey, why don't you hold on that door? We're going to deconflict back on you. All these things. You go, no, I understand.
How it goes external, like, hey, we're moving here so you don't get shot by the guy watching the windows on the third floor from outside. Yeah. Like, they don't even have that comm channel.
We always call them Eagles, Chargers, or Eagles. We were always Eagles. Eagles moving second deck. Hey, we're going third deck. External. We're going to the rooftop. We're going, hey, what if you put guys on the roof and you have guys holding external security or cordon outside? Like that, all these things, the big picture stuff doesn't happen until you're significantly farther down the road. Yeah. So you've partaken in it, but you don't understand it because you've never had to manage it. Like, you were the pawn on the chessboard. You were never the person moving the pieces. And so the thing is that Instagram and social media, and I don't talk shit about the medium. It's people have ulterior motives to a lot of the answers they give, and people want that instant feedback and affirmation of choices or whatever. They want the easy answer. It's like, hey, how do I get from A to Z? Well, it's like telling somebody that there's 1,000 ways to get there, and that none of them are really right. Some are less right. Some are like, they go, well, but how do I get there? And you go, dude, start fucking walking. Like,
and then some people will go like, you don't know what you're talking about. No, that's the problem, is I do, man. Like, I've done it. And that's what's shitty about it. It isn't about 2 empty gun reloaded 3. That's not the answer to your problem. It's not the answer to your problem isn't step A, B, C, right? It's you have to experience these things. You have to have asked the questions. You have to have at least been informed to fill that Rolodex in your head. And especially when you're talking about elevated positional, when it comes to doctrine stuff, like managing a team, a squad, a platoon, an entire raid, right? Like actually being the one to plan it and overlook everything is very different than being the guy whose job is to cut the lock on the back fence and hold it open. New guy, cut, open, don't even worry, you're not coming inside. And that guy can go teach search warrants all day long. Yeah, this is what you do. You get here, and then once you're inside, you do this and that because that's what I learned in class. But they never managed it beyond that, right? The decision making, everything comes down to decision making, and how many, like that forced science class I just had. They called it a concept experience funnel, where if you picture a funnel and the big fat part of it facing you out this way with the very small part that comes in, as experience grows, you learn to live in the deep part of the funnel. And the very fat part of the funnel is where every new guy you've ever seen go through a CQB class goes, where the door opens and it's like, I got a hallway over here, a door over here, and a TV and a couch, and there's a guy sitting over here, right? They see all the shit because they don't know what to look at. And as you get deeper into that funnel of experience, you know precisely what you're going to look at what time, because you know that it's been important 95% of the time. And if it's a 5% miss, you know, fuck it, you don't got a choice anyway. But all I do when that door sweeps, do I need to shoot anybody? No, there's the hallway, I'm going there. I don't care what else is there because I got a whole stack of dudes behind me.
I think that's the thing, right? My fiance just showed up, so I gotta bounce. We've been doing it for an hour and a half. Chris, we're gonna have to do this again. Yeah. Guys, the thing that I answer to that is, I think as you gain experience, you realize that you can't look at the whole of an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it's like, where do you start? Well, somebody used to say this, like, a good decision made now is better than the best decision made late. And so it's like, you just realize that if you can't wait, sometimes you just can't wait for every piece of information. And like, hey, especially in these stressful situations, given whatever the what's going on, you through experience can prioritize and stack what needs to be handled right now. And if you don't have that experience, you have no idea how to prioritize. And so, but that only comes by repetition and real experience, not just a kill house with paper targets that either have a gun or not. Right. So, guys, I got to bounce. As
appreciate you, Joe.
No, I appreciate you, man. If you guys aren't following him, or if you guys, depending on which way this is stacked for you guys, follow Chris down there, 532Insight. If you guys aren't following us, I'd appreciate the follow. I'm Joe with Bruiser Industries. I'll catch you next time.
Chris, I'll see you guys later.